I was going to buy this other Holden car, and then halfway through, the seller was like, yeah, my son died in this car. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, yeah. So we did have to get it fixed. So like, you check the logbook, it's all really great history. And I was like, look, I still would have bought it if it wasn't for the fact the seller went on this big tangent about how he will only sell to Holden people who love Holden. And I was like, I can't lie my way out of this. I can't pretend I know shit about Holden when most of my family have driven a Ford or a Daewoo. So welcome back, fans and friends, to the Complete Guide to Horror podcast. Today we're talking about the incomparable, the legendary, the fucking confusing paradox that is Donnie Darko.
I've been seeing stuff.
Donnie is experiencing what is commonly called a daylight hallucination.
Have you ever seen a portal?
Has he ever told you about his friend Frank, the giant bunny rabbit?
The what?
Every living thing follows along set path. And if you could see your path or channel, then you could see into the future, right?
You got away with it.
What is going to happen?
We have a few days left before they catch me. When's this gonna stop?
You should already know that.
The 2001 film starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Drew Barrymore, and some other people I forgot. Set in October 1988, the film follows, you guessed it, Donnie Darko, an emotionally troubled teenager with a stupid-ass name who inadvertently escapes a bizarre accident, which is the plane crashing into his room, by sleepwalking. He has visions of Frank, a mysterious figure in a rabbit costume, who informs him that the world will end in just over 28 days, or 4 weeks, because you know how there's like those parents that are like, he's like 60 months old, and it's like, 5, your child's 5. But anyway, Frank begins to manipulate Donnie to commit several crimes. Deemed a modern cult classic, this film was scarcely advertised, mostly in part due to the fact that 9/11 happened 6 weeks before its release. And as we know in the movie, there's a few parts where the plane crashes into his room, so, you know, not exactly the best for American audiences, or global audiences, I should say. Critics remain divided on their reviews, but fans have continued to show their love for this really strange movie.
Okay, I am obsessed. I can't believe I just said that out loud.
I remember watching this when I was 17, and I didn't really get it at first. I thought it was cool, but I was like, how the fuck does the time thing work? Why is Drew Barrymore going on about sell a door for 10 minutes? I didn't really get the whole Roberta Sparrows. You know, it didn't make sense to me at the time, but to be fair, I was probably stoned when I watched it at 17, so, I mean, you make your judgment, but...
You ever smoked weed before?
Like, I will say, it did kickstart my foray into similar weirdish movies, you know, like anything by David Lynch, Mulholland Drive, Lost Highway, The Box, starring Cameron Diaz, and also directed by the same person as Donnie Darko, which follows similar weirdish themes around like mortality, time manipulation, all that kind of stuff. So I felt like I joined that kind of bandwagon around that time. But rewatching it, I was quite surprised how much I felt I got it more as opposed to when I watched it the first couple of times. Now, I know it's also not classified as a pure horror movie, but there are some sequences, especially involving Frank the Rabbit, that I feel are quite horror tinged. Plus, I've always just wanted to rant and rave about this movie, so, you know, fuck it, why not? Coop, we'll start with you. What did you think about this movie?
Well, I think, like you, I saw this movie sort of much later on than when it was released. I think it was about 5 years ago. And there was this was in a dark period of my life where I didn't have internet and I had to rely on the channels I could get for entertainment. And this was on, and I was like, oh yeah, what's this? Oh yeah, I've heard about this movie, but I've never seen it. And yeah, enjoyed it, and yeah, watched it a couple of days ago, and I didn't enjoy it as much. I think the second time round, I'm wondering if maybe the first time I saw it, it was like the director's cut or something, but it felt very rushed when I watched it. But I haven't looked up how much longer the director's cut is. I couldn't really think of anything extra that I saw last time. But the whole thing kind of felt a bit rushed. The performances were, for the most part, were really good. It was kind of Drew Barrymore's character was kind of odd in this. I'm a massive Drew Barrymore fan.
Whenever you can go out into the rain, do not miss the opportunity.
But I don't know, she was just kind of like there, and it didn't seem to flow with a lot of the other characters. It was a bit of a strange character. There were a couple of strange characters, particularly in that opening scene where you see it's just like cameo after cameo. You see Patrick Swayze, you see Drew Barrymore, John Cena, and I can't remember the rest of them, but there's so many famous people in this movie. None of them really shine as much as sort of the main characters like Jake Gyllenhaal, and pretty much that family kind of pops. But yeah, I'm kind of like you, Byron. I don't really know what to say about this movie. Like, I'm not a massive fan of it. There was some kind of like some weird themes throughout, but maybe because I've seen a lot of weird experimental movies before I seen this, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, like a sort of palatable Hollywood version of that, and there's sort of like a somewhat entertaining storyline with the idea of the time travel, and you've got Roberta Sparrow going back and forwards in like a time loop with the fucking with the mailbox. Here's the well, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to nail. The teenage characters are kind of ridiculous. And I'd like to point out as well, the idea of Seth Rogen being a bully is hilarious.
Yeah.
He's great. He's a wonderful lab partner, so it's gonna be cool. We'll keep an eye on her.
Why don't you go fuck yourself, you weird little prick?
I'm a teacher, okay? You can't talk to me like that, guy.
I'm not a student, so I can say whatever the fuck I want. You chimp fucking
Actually,
little bastard.
Oh, really?
I didn't catch that it was Seth Rogen until I rewatched this a couple of days ago, and I was like, I know him from somewhere. He's like that comedy guy, but I always confuse Seth Rogen with like Jonah Hill and like three other people at the same time. But yeah, I could never actually figure out what this film was trying to say, like what its statement was. Because it's like, is it saying life is meaningless, life is always on a path, but we can change it, but we can't because we're in a loop. Rabbits are fucking scary. Don't trust mirrors. But
Yeah,
I could never
all of the
work
above.
it out. Yeah. And this is quite what's the word? I was going to say problematic, but it's not that word. It's a recurring thing with Richard Kelly's other work. So, you know, bringing up The Box, which was released 8 years afterwards, it's also very confusing in that it goes into a million different pathways, and it's, again, all about destiny and time and choice and everything, but I could never figure out what the hell the message was supposed to be, nor did the ending actually mean anything at the same time. So I think in this case with Donnie Darko, it's I don't think the writer knew what the fuck he wanted. He was like, let's make all these different branches. Let's go this plot line. Let's talk about the hypocrisy with religion. Let's talk about time travel. And then he's like, fuck, I don't know how to wrap this all up. So, and then he woke up and a plane crashed into him. The end.
Yeah. And the interesting part was that because with the time travel timeline, because Frank was, I guess, the dead guy, the guy that he shoots, and so he knows all the shit. So he's telling him about the fact that Patrick Swayze's character is a pedophile, and that in 28 days or whatever, that's when he's going to shoot him in the head, or that's when that time loop thing is going to open up. And then he decides that he's going to let the thing fall on him and crash and die anyway. But then isn't like, yeah, sure, Frank's going to live. That's nice. But isn't this fucking pedophile still just going to be on the loose? And all this other shit that he changed isn't going to happen? But I don't know.
We're gonna have to let this guy go.
But he's a child molester.
A licensed child molester. People like you make me sick.
So again, like you said, Justin, what's the message there?
Yeah.
That either way shit's gonna happen? I don't know. And he didn't have to shoot that guy in the head.
Yeah, I never got that.
He could have, like, literally, he saw that coming, and like he did see Frank take the mask off and have the hole in his eye. So why didn't he just make a different choice? If he was able to make the choice to just stay in bed and get hit by the piece of the plane, why didn't he just not shoot Frank? I don't know.
Yeah, it's very, very confusing, and I think only the hardcore Donnie Darko fans know this, but there is a sequel called S. Darko that follows Donnie Darko's younger sister, played by Davy Chase, who, funnily enough, also played Samara in the Ring films. That sequel, honestly, there's a reason why some things are direct to DVD, but this thing should have been like direct to car wash or direct to the dumpster. Fucking
that bad.
Still.
Huh?
Yeah, just tries to, and it wasn't written by or directed by the same Donnie Darko team as well, so it felt like more of a fan film, like some stupid shit you'd see on Reddit that's like, me and my friend spent $20 and we made a film, and it's like, puppets and shit, but nah, it's just so bad. But it's interesting, Richard Kelly last year did this interview where he said he has this big, grandiose, ambitious plan to do a sequel to Donnie Darko, somehow bring back Jake Gyllenhaal, but what's it going to be about? There's been no other further updates. I think this is a movie that I know I'm going to rewatch every couple of years. Like, I forced my younger brother and sister to watch it. They fucking hated it. I'm not surprised.
I hate the bitch. Why?
Because they're just like, what the hell are you showing me? I thought we were watching like a funny movie or a straight up horror, but this being a drama / just all over the place mess, it's something that I think has a cult following, but not for the right reasons. I think it's more of a movie you show your friends to be like, can you help me try and figure this out? Because I have no idea.
Decrypting something here, but I don't know what we're decrypting.
And also, there's one sequence where Donnie's looking in the mirror, and it's all about trying to say, does he have hallucinations? Is he like chemically imbalanced in the brain, or is Frank real? And it's like very fast shots of Frank in the mirror as well that, could be classified as a jump scare in some ways, but
how can you do that?
the thing that I always take away from this movie is the part where towards the end of the movie he has the weird holographic tunnel just appear out of his chest. And it's all about saying people are on the same timelines and he has to follow the timeline and everything, but breaks the timeline by choosing to get killed by the plane. So Yeah, I might leave my thoughts at that one. BP, as someone who just recently watched the movie, what do you think? If you're not overloaded.
Yeah, well, it's a confusing movie to start with. So I ended up downloading the director's cut. So it comes in at 113 minutes, which I had this sort of thing with horror movies, but once it hits 2 hours, kind of, it's either going to be really good or it starts to get really tiring quickly. And I found this movie, the pacing is a bit all over the place. At the start, I warmed to it probably the first 10-15 minutes, and it actually reminded me of, in a way, of like American Beauty, which came out, like 10 years later. And I thought it was kind of going maybe that theme. But yeah, after that, I kind of got a little bit confused what was going on, really. It's all just a bit of a mindfuck, to be honest. I think there, as Coop said, there's so many characters at the start that get introduced, like Patrick Swayze, Drew Barrymore, but Jake Gyllenhaal, and you've even got Seth Rogen. And I feel like someone in like Patrick Swayze wasn't utilized good enough for the movie. Like, he's in there, but I just don't think people aren't gonna, I don't think this would be a role that people would remember him for. It's sort of one that sort of comes into the back, like just sort of the filler. Yeah, I don't really know what to think of this movie, or kind of left questioning what was really happening the whole time. Like, I sort of tried to understand to a point, and then they started introducing these chapter 1, chapter 2 things, and I think that's where things started to get a little bit like, okay.
Yeah.
So I kind of got a little bit lost in, I guess, everything that was going on. It's a different type of movie. It's not one that I generally would go for. And as I guess Justin and Coop said, I guess there's a cult following there somewhere, but for me, the replay value is very low. Like, I wouldn't watch this one again. Yeah, it's just a different type of movie. I'm sort of glad there's movies out there that are like that, but it's not really something I would watch again.
Yeah. It's a interesting point about the running time of the movie and the chapters as well. I find only 2 other films I've watched have used that chapter sequence to its advantage. So Promising Young Woman is a movie that does that thing, but instead of it saying like chapter 1 or chapter 3, it has just like 1, then it has 2, then 3. I think it goes all the way up to 5, but it's like brilliantly paced. So it's one of those movies where if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But last night I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once. I had seen the trailer for the movie, and it was something that interested me, but I was going to wait till it came out on Netflix or Stan or whatever. Lucky for me, one of my friends had bought it, so we watched it last night. It has a running time of about 2 hours and 25 minutes, I think, and it's split into 3 main chapters as well. But I love that movie. I was fully invested. I won't spoil anything, but it's something that I was waiting on the edge of my seat for the next scene to happen. Whereas Donnie Darko, I'm even trying to think now in like preparation ahead of the next question, but I can't really remember full sequences. And I've seen this movie plenty of times, but the only things I can really think of are Drew Barrymore talking about cellar door because she's an English teacher, Roberta Sparrow's with the mailbox, the weird tunnel rainbow bullshit that happens at the end, and then the plane crash. But everything else, I think I remember little segments, but I can't remember full quotes. Because I was gonna even just trying to think about, what's my favorite part of the movie. For me, it is when Donnie Darko stands up to the religious hypocrisy during the school presentation, but I can't remember word for word what he says. It was just something around telling him to get fucked or something.
You're right, actually. I am. I'm pretty troubled and I'm pretty confused, but I'm afraid, really, really afraid. Really afraid, but I think you're fucking Antichrist.
that's when Frank tells him about the child porn and everything in that person's basement. So then all that shit happens. But I like the follow-on effects because it feels like this is how people would react to being told that like their local minister or their local priest was found with, you know, child porn, or they were found to be a rapist or a molester, etc. You would have those people in church that would be in denial. And I should say too, this goes for non-church people too. Like you have people that would be like, oh no, he would never do that. This is a what's called like a smear campaign or a slam piece or whatever. And I like that they wrote that character of the uptight conservative woman to still be defending this like pedophile, because that's what would happen in real life. You would 100% see those kinds of people.
As you can see, the lifeline is divided into two polar extremes, fear and love. Fear is in the negative energy spectrum, and love is in the positive energy spectrum.
Duh.
Excuse me? No, duh is a product of fear.
I don't know if either of you noticed this. The uptight Christian lady, Kitty Farmer, was the character's name. Did either of you two recognize her from maybe another movie that we've done in this while we've been doing this podcast?
Do you mean like the principal lady?
She wasn't I think she was just she was a teacher and I'm both a teacher and a parent. That one.
She did look from. I noticed she's familiar, but I couldn't think it.
She was the teacher that got ruled in Child's Play 2.
Ah!
Well.
I was gonna say that, but I felt like that dumbass kid that yells out the wrong answer in class.
yeah. I mean, I enjoyed everything bad happening to her. Like that actress is so good. Like she plays like a villain, like a hateable person, particularly, I guess, a horrible teacher, really, really well. As far as that rendition of Mad World's pretty cool, I guess. That's
yeah.
Wait till you see. As I say, wait till you see the cover of Mad World in Riverdale season 2.
Yeah.
We get it.
I sign us up for a duet. That Donnie Darko song you love. Or hopefully strongly like, at least.
Aren't you?
Or can you not do that either?
All around me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for the daily races.
Just a note on the director's cut as well. So on the DVD, there's a special feature thing where it's something around Richard Kelly's clues to help you figure out Donnie Darko. And there's some extra scenes added between the original and the director's cut version where, like, I don't understand what the director means by this quote, because he says, yeah, I felt like I had to spoon feed some of the things in the director's cut to make people understand. I watched the director's cut. I still don't fucking know what's going on.
Yeah.
I don't know what he means by spoon feeding, because unless he's there on screen telling me what the hell this scene means or what the hell the ending means, I don't know how else to figure out this movie. But the clues in the special features was like around what does the rabbit suit represent, what does Donnie see when he has the hallucinations, what are the numbers on Roberta Sparrow's mailbox or whatever, but like it didn't pick up what the hell that was supposed to mean and all that. But I also wonder why the fuck haven't Netflix and Stan put special features onto, you know, their streaming services as well. And we spoke about that in the Seed of Chucky podcast, but again, I'm just like, what's taking so fucking long? But anyway, sorry, BP, did you have any favorite parts?
There's a couple things I noted. The one thing I noted was this, the camera, I guess the camera direction in some senses that you're right. There's that use of how do you explain it? It's like where people are standing in the scene, everything around them is going really fast.
The Saw effect.
Yeah, and there was that shot in the opening, which was like that, which I kind of didn't mind down the hallway, and it was sort of like panning to like someone at the locker, and then moving across to someone else. That's kind of a cool move. And when you mentioned about the colours, Justin, I did think that because the scene that stuck out was, I think, with the lady from Child's Play 2 talking to Patrick Swayze, and there was someone else in the courtyard, and it looked very bright in the scene, but the colours didn't really represent that. And I was sort of thinking, like, if I was there in real time, would it be the same? I'm like, no, they must have sort of saturated the colour, sort of a bit negative tone in that. And the only other, I guess, the scene that sort of stood out, that you mentioned, Justin, was when Jake Gyllenhaal was having a jab at Patrick Swayze about his claim. But it is true. I mean, you know, there was a mention about the girl being overweight, and then he's like, maybe she should hit the gym, rather than like giving her false hope and sort of, you know, sugarcoating it. But yeah, as I said, everything else, like, I don't mind these type of movies, but I think the audience, it's quite a niche audience that's going to enjoy it. And I think I just think the running time sort of kills it it killed it for me. I guess if it's maybe like 90 minutes, you'd probably be able to just get people, I guess, like they hit that exhaustion side of it, be like, okay, it's over. But when it's like another 45 minutes on top, and then the chapters and the countdown, it's not very, I guess, like on pace. So it's sort of like very slow in some parts, but each to their own.
Yeah. They definitely could have cut down this movie by at least 20 minutes. I didn't really care for some of the other sequences where it's like, what was it? The mum and the daughter on the same plane that crashes into Donnie Darko at the end somehow, and they're off to the dance recital or whatever. And it's like, I didn't really care for that portion. Maybe that was only introduced to find a way to put the family on the plane that the engine falls from. It was also a way to put in the teacher / Christian woman onto the same, not onto the plane, sorry, because she was looking for a chaperone to replace her while she defended the pedophile. But I don't know, I just felt it could have been a lot shorter. That was also a complaint from my younger siblings when we watched this a couple of years ago, where they were like, oh, finally. And I was like, It just feels like a Neighbours or a Home and Away storyline that's very weak and just kind of came out of nowhere. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's just kind of been put in there to fill some time. And then it just, I get what you mean. Yeah. Like, my least favorite part of this movie is actually the fact that it has some pretty terrible writing. So not only when it comes to the overall plot of the story, because I do think it's a very interesting premise, don't get me wrong, but it was not concise at all. And one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to anything, movies, TV shows, horror and non-horror, is when they're like, it's up to the audience to decide. I'm like, no, tell me what the fuck you wanted so that I can get a resolution. Even if it's like a really dark ending, like, you know, The Mist, or if it's a happy ending, like It Chapter 2, where they blew Pennywise to death or whatever. Just have a clear fucking ending so that I can figure out how I'm supposed to feel about this. Not, you know, try and be like, oh, he died, but everyone remembers him somehow, but not really. But also, and this is not the actor's fault, it's not Jake Gyllenhaal's fault, it's not his girlfriend or whatever, but some of the dialogue and also the, not necessarily costume design, but it felt like 40-year-old people trying to write how they think teenagers talk.
Yeah. 1000%.
Like, I don't know, I find this issue with a lot of movies, particularly Netflix series now, where, like, early 2000s, it was very much trying to capture on, like, SMS lingo, or trying to be, like, all angsty and
you could suck a fuck.
Yeah. That, whereas Fuck, what was that movie where Rebel Wilson plays the cheerleader?
Yeah, Senior Year. No, Senior Year.
Senior Year, that's it. It's a
Yeah, it felt half-assed, half funny, but half cringy. And it is also, I think, Rebel Wilson trying to be funny, and I think this sounds bad, but I think her not being maybe her body like it was doesn't really come off in this movie. Maybe I don't know. That also might have a bit of something to do with it.
It's like she lost her mojo, but the writing for that movie, and this is in, the Kissing Booth, that remake of She's All That, but it's He's All That. Every time they try to write a social media influencer or one of those type of roles, it's always, OMG, hashtag love your outfit. Oh my God, follow me, don't look at me. Oh my God, I'm famous. And I'm like, I work with actual, like, I've been working for like 7-8 years now with actual social media influencers who have like millions of followers or hundreds of thousands of followers, and 90% of them are bought for, but they don't talk like that. And I'm like, I know they're trying to, the whole thing with like high school stories and like anything aimed at a teen audience is generalize, and you're going to exaggerate some features. So the outcast is always going to be like this angry, angsty person, and popular person's always going to be this Regina George bitchy one. But it's just lazy writing to me, and I fucking hate it. So I turned off Senior Year. Actually, I turned off Senior Year when they mentioned Deep Impact, because I fucking hate that movie for a reason. And I was like, yep, not watching it anymore. Amy Schumer or Rebel Wilson, whichever blonde-headed bitch it is in this one, I didn't care for it. So I was like,
It's funny how, Justin, you said, let's go back to the movie, how they said they wanted the audience to sort of interpret how it finishes. Doesn't that sort of go out the window when they do a sequel? Because it's obviously they've kind of set what they think people should have thought of the movie to end as, and they kind of just done the sequel off that. It sounds a bit stupid if they're going to propose that and then do a sequel.
Yeah, and like this movie as well, to me, it doesn't reek of studio interference, nor could I find anything to say that they had to cut sequences or they had to cut this or cut that, because it was partially financed by Drew Barrymore's production company. That's also why she wanted to star in it. And it's like, couldn't they, maybe this movie deserves some studio interference to be like, hey, what the fuck is this about? Can you put in more scenes with the rabbit? Can you wrap up some storylines so that there's not Herbert the pedophile from Family Guy running on the loose? And but that's my own little rant around my many least favorite parts. But Coop, did you have any least favorite parts of the movie?
You touched on the teenager characters being kind of like 40-year-olds writing them and not understanding them, and lots of cringy dialogue throughout this movie that is just not realistic at all. That's interesting that you pointed out that Drew Barrymore, would you say the production company was involved in this, because it did feel like that. Like I said, massive Drew Barrymore fan, but it felt like her character was almost like a shoe-in. So that kind of makes sense that there wasn't more engagement with her and her character with the other characters. But I guess a lot of the characters sort of felt I guess it's just not really written very well. I mean, let's be honest. I don't think there's any sort of specific parts. Even though I just said the fact that Mad World version is good by Gary Jules, that is also just like a stupid cringy ass scene towards the end of that movie, to like try and trick the audience into thinking that this whole movie was this really well thought out, well written, well pondered philosophical ride, when it really just didn't know what it was anyway. So that bit at the end is very much a slap in the face, I feel, after sitting through it. So probably right at the end of the movie, when you just realize you're not really going to get any real closure as to the pacing and why everything happened, it just kind of, yeah, it doesn't leave a very good taste in your mouth, I don't think.
It's a very confusing movie. I completely forgot as well just how fucking open-ended, not only the ending, but the whole concept itself is just very unclear. So I feel like I should have actually warned you both a bit more before recommending this movie. But yeah,
I think it's good to probably get us out of our comfort zones of what movies, because we all have like different tastes, as examined even by like our choices today, kind of a thing. But I think it's probably a good thing because I've never seen this movie, and it's interesting to sort of like even witness someone like Jake Gyllenhaal or Seth Rogen when he's not really known that, to sort of be in these movies in the background and sort of see where they are today. That's also interesting.
It was as though this plan had been with him all his life, pondered through the seasons. Now, in his 15th year, crystallized with the pain of puberty.
It'd be interesting to see what the trailer was for this movie, to see if it actually is like commercially appealing, or if the trailer's in the same realm of how the movie sort of paces. I don't think it went to a box office, did it?
It got released in theaters, but it wasn't a wide opening. It was quite small. The only trailer,
$7.5 million at box office on a $4.5 million budget.
And considering
limited release or something,
considering that was 21 years ago as well, where
inflation,
most box offices were doing at least triple that. So even for like the worst one, like there was no major billions and billions of dollars at the box office, but I felt people were going to the cinema more and more, especially compared to the last 5 years, where I don't know, I feel like people only really go to the cinema now to watch like the next Avengers 400 or Iron Man 7 or whatever.
I think the issue is what I'm thinking about the movie. The only real redeeming factor to go see it would probably be for Patrick Swayze, because I don't think Drew Barrymore was famous at all then, nor Jake Gyllenhaal.
Drew Barrymore was being famous since the 80s.
Oh, was she? No.
She was in E.T.
Firestarter.
And Firestarter.
Okay.
There was also that movie we recapped called Scream.
Yeah.
No,
and Charlie's Angels was already out by then, so.
Okay, yes. Okay. Well, E.T. came out before it, so yeah, that makes sense.
Sorry that we just had to come to raging defense of Drew Barrymore's illustrious career. Don't get me started.
Sorry, I'm stupid on my forehead. Yeah, but I probably would have just pushed more. I guess. Okay, we'll push more on Drew Barrymore and Patrick Swayze. But I don't, like I said, Patrick Swayze wasn't utilised well enough, I don't think.
It's like Jake Gyllenhaal as well. I don't know if there was I can't remember the term for it, but it's like there's like the whole craze at the moment around Pete Davidson being like the ultimate dream guy or whatever, for lack of a better word. And like before that, it was Robert Pattinson back when Twilight was a huge phenomenon.
Yeah.
So could Jake Gyllenhaal maybe have been marketed better to be like that 2001 version of like the deathly sick looking white guy that all the girls love? But I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard, even, my female friends in high school and whatnot, it was never like, oh, Jake Gyllenhaal's so cute, oh my god. Never heard anyone say it like that. So
I just had a mind blank because I'm looking at People Under the Stairs when the movie came out, and I'm looking at that thinking it was this movie going, it was 91. That's why I had a mind blank.
10 years after that.
If it's 2001, yes, okay, it makes sense. The Drew Barrymore was around. Yes. So, okay, all good.
If we talk about Donnie Darko as a concept and if it holds up today, I don't necessarily think it would hold up today in its current state. I think that it does need to be trimmed by at least 20 to 30 minutes just to keep it short and concise. Felt that it needs to be heavily rewritten just to make it a bit more clearer with its whole concept, and also just to remove some of that really fucking shit dialogue between, well, every character in this movie. I don't know why, and I have a feeling I'm right about this. I feel like Drew Barrymore's character just waffles on and on and on, that I remembered fast forwarding through a scene last time I watched this, but I don't know, just it's an interesting concept. Do I think it's a good concept? Not really. But Coop, do you have any thoughts on the concept, or it's like whether it holds up today?
Well, I was just actually reading that basically the way this was written. So Richard Kelly, the person who wrote and directed this, says he recalled a news story that he had read as a child, which he later called an urban legend, about a large piece of ice falling from the wing of a plane and crashing through a boy's bedroom who was not there at the time and thus escaped death. Kelly used this to develop an initial idea of a jet engine falling onto a house, and no one could determine its origin, and built the rest of the script from there. So it sounds like pretty much this movie was kind of put together like pieces in a puzzle, and that's probably why it's so oddly paced and themes thrown together, I would say. So I probably not a very, very good concept given the way that it was thrown together. But I mean, everybody loves a mystery, but I don't know, I wasn't sitting there like, oh, what's going on the whole time. Like, it wasn't one of those movies. Like, I wasn't like, whoa, I can't wait to watch this story unravel. It really wasn't like that at all. Watching this movie, it didn't have that grab that it should in a mystery kind of movie. So I'd say no, basically, because it's meant to be like a mystery thriller type thing, but you're not invested.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wasn't anyway. I'm sure there's people out there that love this movie and found that it absolutely reeled them in, but it just didn't do that with me at all. And I feel like that's what it was meant to do.
It's interesting learning about Richard Kelly's the whole basis of why he wrote it. It almost sounds like a year 12 standard English assessment task. You know, write about why the boy didn't get killed by the jet engine, and then someone came up with this entire bullshit concept around time travel paradoxes, and the teacher's probably reading it being like, this could be a movie. Maybe when he was writing this, someone should have just been saying, hey, time to put the computer away, it's a shit script, do something else. But as we've seen, especially with Southland Tales and The Box, he's just not a good writer, so... And also, he stole The Box from a Twilight Zone episode, so... Yeah, I'll get into that when we get into that movie, but... yeah, fully agree. BP, what are your thoughts?
What's the question? Is this if it still lived up?
Yeah, if you thought it was a good concept, and if you think this movie holds up today.
Well, as I said earlier, like a couple of times, it's different. I appreciate a movie, I guess, that goes outside the box and does something different. In the world of 2001, I'm not sure if there were many other movies out there, sort of like psychological thrillers or whatever thriller, that were sort of doing this type of movie. So it's nice to see a movie being made like that. As I said earlier, though, it's and as Coop said, it's not one that you're really like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? And I'm like actively watching the screen. I think the movie now looks a bit dated, and if anything, it's just got a bit of baggage around it. And as you said, Justin, if they could cut it down a bit, maybe tighten the script up a bit, maybe fix it a little bit, it could actually turn into something good. And I wouldn't be surprised if a remake's not actually in the works for this, as everything at the moment is. So I can imagine someone's probably going to do something on it soon and try and put it, I don't know, make it a bit more broader, maybe commercial, a bit more commercially appealing, but still appeal to a niche market of sorts. Or I think of a movie at the moment that's kind of like that in a way might be like Mother, if anyone has seen Mother.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah, I actually didn't mind Mother, but Mother is a bit of a mindfuck as well. But I find it more appealing. I think it did a better job execution-wise than this movie did. But this kind of reminds me that they're kind of like, this movie was the 2001 version of Mother, and Mother's sort of a better, more executed movie.
Much better.
Yeah. It's interesting thinking about that too, because I mentioned before about the remake of 1999's She's All That. Now it's called He's All That. I could easily see them swapping the gender around with this one, and maybe it's like Connie Darko or like some stupid twist to it. But like, as long as it has better writing, I'm all down for it. But for the moment, I think this movie has a lot to improve on. I think the cult following is more out of confusion, more out of just shared hysteria, trying to work out what it means. But I also get the feeling this is one of those movies that people claim they know the answers to, just like try and seem cooler than everyone. Like, ooh, it's undiscovered, it's not a mainstream movie, and it's like, it is fully a mainstream movie, but I don't think anyone knows. Not even the writer knows what the hell the movie is about. It's very evident throughout all of it, but yeah. Anyways, just wanted to say BP and Coop, thank you both for joining me again today.
Dankeschön.
Thank you.
Listeners, in our next set of episodes, we discuss The People Under the Stairs, the 1991 horror comedy film directed by Wes Craven, in which a young boy and two adult robbers become trapped in a house belonging to a very strange couple after breaking in to steal their collection of rare coins.
In every neighborhood, there is one house that adults whisper about, and children cross the street to avoid. Now, Wes Craven, creator of A Nightmare on Elm Street, takes you inside.
Something's in there.
We gotta get out of here, Leroy.
All sorts of rumors about what goes on in that house. The police never took it serious.
She's been feeding that thing between the walls again.
Very, very tense about this.
What goes on in this house is a sin. But what goes on under the stairs is a nightmare. Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs.
If you liked our episode, give us a comment, like, share, subscribe, tip, and all that jazz. We greatly appreciate your support. And if you hated our podcast,
I think you're fucking antichrist.